Life is so freaking frustrating right now. I mean, I wake up every single morning to the sweet, sweet sound of my mum teaching a class of 11-year-olds at 7:30 a.m. and I then get to spend all day cocooned in my noise-cancelling headphones, and I'm not even listening to any music. Motivation is lacking in almost every respect. It's not like you can look forward to a nice cold one at the end of the week with your mates. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief, it was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light, it was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope, it was the winter of despair. We had everything before us. We had nothing before us. This is what Charles Dickens wrote in A Tale of Two Cities 160 years ago, and it has a strange and slightly unsettling resonance right now. Everything feels, as Dickens writes, in the superlative degree of comparison only. Like, everything is either the best or the worst, and there are so many confusing, conflicting emotions and feelings going on at the moment. And to be honest with you, I am struggling with the highs and the lows, and I can't wait for this all to be over. Is what I would have said a few weeks ago, but over the last week or so I've really been trying to combat that kind of mentality, and that is the subject matter of this video. So I'm out on one of my runs and I'm listening to one of my favourite podcasts, The Tim Ferriss Show, and Tim asked the guy he's interviewing, how can you make the next 3 to 6 months sacred? Something you look back on and treasure. And this really struck a chord with me. It felt so jarring to be looking at the current times and saying, how can I actually not only have survived this and have got something good out of it, and I think the very notion that this time can even possibly be sacred, or that it has been gifted to us, completely flips the narrative that we're all being told and that we're all telling ourselves, which is that we've been forced into this situation. And before I get into sharing just a few of the ideas that I've had as to how I can make this time sacred and that you can hopefully also use, I just want to focus on the fundamental change in mindset that I have gone through over the last week and that I'm continuing to kind of force myself into and that you really need to adopt. And that is to move from saying, I have to because of lockdown, to saying, I get to because of lockdown. What can you do now rather than what you must do now? Just as this was all starting, my girlfriend's stepdad actually said something to me that I think has really kind of come to the forefront of my mind, and that was that this is actually a once in a lifetime, hopefully, opportunity to live life in a way that you would never normally live, to do things that you would never normally be able to do. And I think if we frame it like that, in spite of the fact, I'm not saying at all that I'm not struggling, that I'm not finding this all overwhelming, that I'm not feeling unsettled, panicked about my law exams that start next week. I am, but focusing on that brings me no benefit. Whereas looking at all the opportunities that are now open to me, at least puts something of a positive light on all of this. And as I found myself with a little bit more time on my hands, and by that, I'm studying really hard at the moment for my law exams, but there is only so much time, as those of you who've watched my videos on how I study for exams, which you should do, will know there's only so long you can spend wandering around talking to yourself. And outside of that, I've really been trying to listen to more podcasts, more audiobooks, and watch more little educational videos on YouTube. And I've become really interested in the Stoics and the Stoic philosophy recently. And I just wanted to really quickly, I think this is something that's really pertinent at the moment. I've been listening and watching videos on a guy called Epictetus, and he was, first of all, he lost the use of his leg during childhood. He then, at the age of around 40, was banished from his home forever, never to come back, by a tyrannical and ruthless leader. And if you look at that, if you imagine that happening to someone you know who's 40, that's a pretty bad time. And yet, I want to read a quote from him. And this guy, in spite of everything he went through, was able to say this: happiness and freedom begin with a clear understanding of one principle. Some things are within our control and some things are not. It is only after you have faced up to this fundamental rule and learned to distinguish between what you can and can't control, that inner tranquility and outer effectiveness become possible. I've really been looking for ways that I can implement this and focus on what I can control and removing to a degree what I can't. So in that vein, I want to tell you why I'm wearing this super cool blue wristband. And it's not because, you know, I've gone back to being about 13 years old and having like an armful of these because they're really cool. It's because I am doing the 21-day no complaint challenge. And that is a thing that was invented by this guy called Will Bowen, who's a psychologist, and he's basically become famous off the back of this.
Complaining's like bad breath. You notice it when it comes out of somebody else's mouth, but not so much when it comes out of your own.
It basically tries to direct your attention towards making sure that you're focusing on how you could solve those problems, or just focusing on different stuff altogether. Now, if I whip out my big dick and look up complain, it says to express dissatisfaction or annoyance. And there's nothing in and of itself wrong with expressing either dissatisfaction or annoyance. The issue comes when you're complaining and you don't even really realize you're doing it. Like, we're all completely ignorant to the impact that we're having on our own happiness. And in a study conducted by Will Bowen, he found that outside of lockdown, people on average complained between 15 and 30 times a day. And they had literally no idea that they were even complaining at all. So here's the challenge, and just to be clear, you are not complaining if you speak only and directly to the person who can actually solve the problem. And it's helpful, I think, to just quote Eckhart Tolle on this. Complaining is not to be confused with informing someone of a mistake or deficiency so that it can be put right. So it's fine to go over to your brother's bedroom and tell him, excuse me, like, please can you just stop playing your video game for the next hour because you're taking all of the Wi-Fi and I really need to get on this Zoom call for work. Like, just do that for an hour and then you can go on afterwards. And crucially, you're doing it in a tone that is not, oh my god, my brother is such a... And I'm gonna go and storm into his bedroom and tell him he needs to stop playing video games right now because he's ruining everything. My life is ruined. That would be complaining. So all you need is a wristband or a bracelet of some kind, or, you know, ideally something you don't normally wear, and every time you complain, oh my god, this is so annoying, you simply change the wristband over to the other hand. And the idea is to not change hands for 21 days. Now, to give you some context, I would say I probably changed hands with this. I started yesterday. 10 times yesterday. I would say today I've made it through all day, so I'm still on day 1, but I've made it through all day without changing it. That's probably a reflection of the fact I haven't spoken to that many people. Basically, I think be prepared to change it a lot to begin with, and to become really aware of the fact that you actually complain way more than you realized. And that's a good thing. So yeah, let me know in the comments if you're going to join me in the 21-day no complaint challenge, and if you're not, it's cool. I ain't complaining. Okay, so my second much lower commitment idea is, and this is based on something my stepdad kind of said to me the other day, and it's kind of cringe because it comes from your parents, you're kind of like, yeah, whatever, but it's just to take a real like awareness and appreciate that this is an unprecedented time in terms of our access and ability to enjoy nature and the world around us. You can go on a bike ride along a main road and you barely come across another car. You can go for a walk through a field and see loads of other families out walking their dogs and together. Right now, you can actually enjoy nature. You can look out of your window and you can see birds singing. And as cringe as it sounds, I think there is something kind of strangely comforting for me to really focus on something like that, or look at a tree and think, wow, that's been there for a really long time. There's a permanence to those things, and I think that is comforting when everything else feels like it's changing. Nature doesn't know that coronavirus is happening. That's kind of crazy. And I think I take some solace in that. And I think alongside that, we also need to try and focus on what a guy called David Brooks, who is a political and social commentator in the US, has said. And that is that we need to foster a sense of community where community has essentially broken down. And I'm seeing that basically as meaning, like, for example, email your grandma. Go and help someone who's really struggling to get on Zoom and who just really wants to see their family. Help by going shopping for your family, or just cook together as a family. Or for example, it could be as simple as just trying to be a really kind of positive and effervescent force within your family that is this kind of bubbly person in spite of everything that's going on, in spite of what is a really difficult time for people, making a real effort to bring some energy and some positivity. And that's something I'm trying to do in every single community that I'm a part of, whether it be with my friends and our interactions with one another, with my family at home, or online. And lastly, I think we should all try and use this time to do stuff for ourselves. You know, and that could be as simple as I have spent a lot of time making my room cleaner and tidier, and just generally a space that I feel is sacred for me, that I can work in and be comfortable in all the time, whether I'm at my desk or just chilling watching TV. And then I've also set myself the challenge of trying to focus on 3 things that I wasn't focusing on before lockdown started. And I picked these from, I guess, what are sort of like 4 categories that I have in my head of different sort of things that you can do. One of them is learning, the second one is hobbies, entrepreneurship, and wellness. For learning, I am currently just trying to read for 30 minutes every 2 days, but it could be anything from learning new skills on Skillshare, for example, or just going through more YouTube videos, like I mentioned earlier, looking up the Stoics and just kind of finding an interest in something that you can spend a few hours like looking at interesting stuff rather than just kind of fettering away time scrolling through Instagram. In terms of entrepreneurship and hobbies, I kind of group those together. For me, that's been just working really hard on my YouTube channel and learning about how to improve the quality of my videos and really just spending loads of time on my edits. But for you, it could be starting an Instagram page with your embroidery, you know, filming things you're doing to stay entertained in lockdown and creating a YouTube channel. Something as simple as knitting or watercolor or graphic design, animation, video editing, whatever it might be. And loads of these things you can actually learn way more about on Skillshare. I've personally been learning about video editing and animation. And last but not least, wellness. Now this could be either physical wellness, so basically doing exercise, or mental wellness, so that could be meditation through an app like Headspace, or just general emotional fitness through an app like Fika. For me, that's meant working on my physical fitness. I've got to say that at the start of lockdown, I think my physical fitness was probably at an all-time low, but having done exercise every single day for the last 6 weeks now, that means going on a run every other day, because I really like to get out of the house, and then doing exercise at home, either in my garden or in my bedroom, no equipment required, body weight exercises. And I basically follow 2 channels. I either do Pop Sugar, which is really cool, or MadFit, she's called. Those are the 2 channels that I would recommend if you're looking for some really easy beginner style workouts. And yeah, just been doing them every single day between that and running, and I've seen such massive improvements in my physical well-being. And this is a pretty good place to come full circle. Now, lockdown sucks in many respects. But the reality is there's very little I can do to change the ways in which it sucks. I can't just click my fingers and go and be with my girlfriend Beth. I can't just suddenly vanish and reappear in a pub surrounded by my mates having a beer. But what I can do is I can crack a beer open with my family over dinner. I can enjoy the fact that my YouTube channel is doing better than it ever has done before, thanks to the time and effort I'm able to put into it because of lockdown. I can appreciate the fact that my fitness is at pretty much an all-time high, that I'm spending more time now with my mum than pretty much I ever have done before, that I'm reading more, that I'm learning more, that I'm making a pretty good effort of making the best of the opportunity that I've been gifted. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Remember that you can sign up to a free trial of Skillshare for 2 months via the link that will appear on screen now. Please like and subscribe, and if you've enjoyed this video, go and check out my 5 AM experiment, where I find out if all the hype around getting up at 5 AM like a crazy person is worth it.